The following program, Know the Cause, is paid for by Mediatrition Incorporated.
What a show we have lined up for you today. Children's developmental disorders, they have skyrocketed in the last 15, 20 years. Why is that, folks? Dr. John Trowbridge is here talking about the Brewery syndrome. Could you be a teetotaler and be pulled over by the police for being drunk? You're not going to want to miss this segment. Lily McDermott has a company, whenyouneedafriend.com. Today she's going to talk about the 5 Ds of success. D like Doug. The 5 Ds of success. And finally, last but certainly not least, my good friend Dr. Julia Schulenberg is talking about genetics. That's the hand we were dealt by mom and dad. Epigenetics says we don't have to live within those confines. All that and more on this.
For the past 45 years, I have dedicated my life and my whole career to finding the root cause of disease. And I now know with certainty that we must play a role in our own health care. I'm a self-care advocate, and you know what? Every time you change your diet for the better, exercise, or swallow a nutritional supplement, so are you. Now welcome to Know the Cause.
My wife and I were watching, do you get Turner Classics? I love that. We have Dish, Turner Classics. Old movies, 1930s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Folks, the thing, there was a beach scene, and everybody on that beach is rail thin. 1935. It's absolutely amazing what happened to us, right? I'll try and answer that right now. I'm glad you're watching. Why are people so sick in 2022? Look at this. I've used this back a dozen years ago, this graphic. The number of children with developmental disorders, including autism, ADD, has increased by 17% between 97 and 08 in the US, according to a new study. That means that in 2008, 15% of all U.S. children, or nearly 10 million children, had a developmental disorder according to the study. It's almost like we're hungry to hyperdiagnose anything. He's not growing fast enough. Well, he stutters. Well, he's reading the words mixed up. Why? Certainly diet couldn't play a role in this. I think diet does if you have one precursor. Stick with me. Death from cancer have skyrocketed. Down there at the left, 1930, and over to the right, the year 2000. I mean, this folks, is every disease is going up. Look at heart disease. Heart disease statistics. You can't read that. I made it kind of tiny, and thank you, American Heart, American Journal. .org. That's 1900, then it goes up to 10, 20, 30, 50, 60. Look at heart disease. Look at any disease. Where was it before this thing came along? The precursor, I think, to all diseases. Let's keep going. Iatrogenically means medically caused obesity epidemic. The authors also correctly highlighted the incontrovertible evidence that the obesity and metabolic syndrome epidemic we are facing is largely drug-caused, as highlighted by this. Given this, we must accept that we are essentially complicit in greatly increasing our own patient morbidity and mortality, and that this epidemic within an epidemic we caused is iatrogenic. That was The Psychiatrist, volume 37, number 1, 10 years ago. We're causing illness and death. That was the first time I really saw them say, whoops, couldn't be our pills, could it? Are doctors, hospitals, clinics iatrogenically inducing ill health? They don't mean to, folks. These are some of the finest people. I have a lot of friends who are doctors, nurses, and I'm telling you, they're stellar. Their training, I don't think, was. But they are stellar. They became doctors and nurses, medical people, lab techs, LPNs, LVNs. They became medical people to help people. They had a craving for this when they were younger. God bless them. They're doing wonderfully. But what if their education was flawed a tiny bit? Let's keep going. Here's my take. The elephant in the room the past 70 years is antibiotics. Soon after World War II, antibiotics were introduced. In agriculture, we all know this, they're used as growth promoters. These are neurotoxic fungal mycotoxins, and as such, when overused, can cause most any illness known to man, yet they are overlooked as a possible cause to most any illness. Think about it. 1940, beginning of World War II, we didn't have antibiotics. Today, folks, the damage I believe done by antibiotics is called seeding. I don't think the 7-year-old who takes antibiotics becomes obese or has more risk of cancer, but I think if that 7-year-old becomes 9 and 12 and 15 and 35 years old and continues on antibiotics, I'm pretty certain there's a link there in illness. Okay, antibiotics can be life-saving when used judiciously, but medical journals admit their overuse is common. However, they're linked with neurological symptoms, epileptic seizures, heart disease symptoms, obesity, and even cancer. Many of you know I do a lot of my research on a NIH, National Institute of Health, website called PubMed. If you got a grant, you got to publish it on PubMed. There's probably millions of papers on it. So let's talk about that. The National Institute of Health website, PubMed.gov, stores medical research articles. When you type into their search engine the words antibiotic-induced, 132,000 papers are listed. Antibiotic overuse can lead to significant human mortality and morbidity. Talk to your doctor if you're routinely taking antibiotics, and just take a minute here and let me land on this. I won't say a word. It comes from a book in 1979 called The Genus Penicillium, and take a read. We knew it 50 years ago. It's not going away. Be careful with antibiotics. I hope that helps. Joining us right now is Dr. John Trowbridge. I have said that name for 41 years. When we first met out in Humble, Texas.
Humble, Texas, that's
Can't
right.
say humble, I had to say humble. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. I think you're a genius. You mentored me through the years. He's written a book called The Yeast Syndrome. Many of us have seen it. It's been around 36 years. He's written another one that's free. It's yours, Sick and Tired. You can download it on his website. We'll give you that information. I want to talk to you about something called brewery syndrome, which I had no idea 25 years ago what it was. It's a real phenomenon, folks.
Absolutely.
Sometimes a policeman pulls over a person. They haven't had a drop to drink, and they're labeled because they have high blood alcohol levels. You had a lot to drink, you're not telling us the truth, and off to jail they go. Sometimes it's rare, I'm sure, but sometimes, Dr. Trowbridge, they haven't had a thing to drink.
Correct.
Wow, tell us about it.
In fact, often they don't, because they realize that, they didn't feel good when they drank alcohol, which can amplify the effects of autobrewery. We've got all these custom breweries now that do these craft beers and everything like that. It's a different kind of brewery because you're crafting it yourself with the bacteria and the yeast in your gut. There are some bacteria that will play the game as well, but the yeast are more common because, we're wet, warm, and wonderful. Yeast love growing inside us to recycle us. That's their job in life. And when they make a waste product called alcohol, you absorb it just as though you had drunk it. It affects your systems just the way regular alcohol does. Now, the interesting thing about that is, did you commit a crime? Well, no, but yes, because you were actually, let's say, operating a motor vehicle, your blood alcohol level was up. That's it, that's all they need. Talking a judge or a prosecutor out of that into a medical treatment system is sometimes hard because they got all the elements they need. Now the judicial system needs to take advantage of recognizing people rather than procedures.
Yeah. Can I ask, would a preemptive measure to induce this auto brewery, in other words, you're saying endogenously, we got a brewery going right here.
Inside you.
You're breathing out alcohol. There have been people fired from their jobs because they went in smelling like alcohol, and they're teetotalers. Would a preemptive move by that patient, the person with auto brewery syndrome, be a few rounds of antibiotics?
No. Antibiotics just make it more fun. There's actually been people who were hospitalized, given the antibiotics, given the sugars and starches and such, and then measured the blood alcohol levels to document that was what was going on. You don't need that really. Really, a good history. Actually, a good history answers most everything. Okay, but taking care of the auto brewery patients can be very complex because each one is individual. They're not just all the same.
Do they crave breads, pastas?
Some do.
No alcohol, but they crave other carbohydrates.
Some do.
It's fascinating. I can just imagine if I get pulled over, and is that alcohol in your breath? Yeah, sometimes people tell me that, but I don't drink. I stopped drinking 10 years ago.
I hope they call me and I'll tell them about you.
I'm going to have your phone number, 1-800-FIX-PAIN. Right?
That's it.
Call this doctor.
This guy is really an closet alcoholic.
How did you get through all this medical training? You did your pre-graduate work where at Stanford, and then went on the University.
Western Reserve.
How did you do all this and then realize chelation is beneficial,
right?
And yeast, it permeates any human tissue?
Well, you know, when you start looking at what's not working, which is classical care, and you start saying, well, what would work? And you start kind of tripping along that thin line of going, oh, wow, I was not taught about this, but it works. It gets people better. You're
amazing. If you suffered or a loved one suffered from ABS, auto brewery, is it fixable?
Oh, it's totally fixable. It takes time because, like I say, each patient is different. You know, people think of, I'm treating a disease. No, I'm treating a patient. And it's like a chair and a table has 4 legs. You've got to treat all 4, not just 3. And that's the same thing with the patient. You're not just treating yeast or auto brewery, you're treating the patient.
Nystatin, you know, which sops up yeast in the gut.
Nystatin helps, diflucan helps, the diet helps. There's other things as well, but, you know, it's a finesseful, elegant, wonderful way to get people better.
Have you seen that clinically?
Do
you see patients like that?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It's amazing. Your mind is a dangerous thing. Okay, how do they get Sick and Tired free download?
Very simple. Go to healthchoicesnow.com. That's our website, because if you don't know you have Health Choices Now, you don't have any.
Great name.
And download it.
Yeah. And his phone number, by the way, folks, is 1-800-FIX-PAIN. How he got that? I haven't a clue. It must have been 40, 50 years ago when we met.
Bribery.
Bribery gets you everywhere. Good to see you, Dr. Trowbridge. Thank you for coming in. Oh, I'm so excited to bring you this interview. It's only about 5 minutes, but you're going to meet a very powerful person who impacted me. I was interviewed by Lily McDermott, introduced by a couple of my doctor friends, and I get interviewed a lot. I have one at 5 o'clock this afternoon. This was a special interview, very knowledgeable, all pre-work done, prep work done. Listen to the opening. Even though I have a full-time career in legal and medical marketing, I'm also a soloist at my church, a certified life coach, and the host of Lillian McDermott radio show / classroom. All you need to do is go to whenyouneedafriend.com. Lillian, thank you so much for being here today. Do tell what you're doing in this classroom, because I loved it.
Thank you so much, Doug. This is an honor to be on your in your show, and I'm looking forward to you having in my classroom. The goal of the classroom and whenyouneedafriend.com is to make a difference, for us to wake up to some new truths, because we've been lied to from the beginning of time. And so by encouraging people to take their life back, to take their health back, life is changing, especially in the last 3 years. People are absolutely waking up. And so I'm so grateful to be a part of this journey.
You have taught on the 3 M's, M cubed, right? Mold, metal, and microbes. And on an earlier show, you did that for us. Folks, you can find that on our website. Teach us now about success. I mean, you've interviewed a huge number of very successful people. What have you learned? And I especially like the teaching you gave about the 5 Ds. D, the letter D. What are the 5 Ds that will catapult a person into success?
So the 5 Ds of success came from interviewing many, many, many wealthy people. And people think about money as where you need to be successful, but success takes on different looks, like our health, When was the last time people said, I want to be successful at health? And so I came up with the 5 Ds of success. One of them is dream. You have to dream. Whatever your dream is to be successful in health, people don't dream about that. And so the action to that is to declare it and to also do research on whole food, plant-based living, whatever they need to do to make that happen. Because a dream without action is just wah wah. And so then the next one would be determination, the drive that, people create new things and different things all the time. And if you look at the Loma Linda people that are centenarians, how did they do it? And so determination is what they all had in common. Also, they felt a sense of belonging. So then there's drive. Okay, how are we going to get there? I want it quick and easy. Take a pill, or you could take a pill, or you could take responsibility. So that drive is important. So when it comes to drive, you want it to be long, and you want to be in that long, what is that race, that long race?
Marathon.
And so that marathon, that's it, that's the word, the marathon. And that marathon is part of, being in the moment, exercise, breathing, nature, yoga, dancing. And that's why we dance in the classroom every time. That's how we start the classroom every time. And then there's disappointment. It's not so much what your disappointment is, more than the expectation. Sometimes we perceive things in a way that comes from damage from our childhood, perceived things that have been done to you that you've not been able to let go of. Those emotions go into your body, and in your body, they sit there and they manifest into dis-ease. So we need to learn about how to deal with these traumas, these past traumas, and move forward, lean towards whatever it is that we want to create. So change and shift that perception. And last, making a difference. I have a page at whenyouneedafriend.com that's called the 100% responsibility page. And the fourth question is, how am I going to use what I learned to help others along the way, which is what the classroom is all about. Things that I've experienced to help people, bring them to empower them, to see that they are enough. They had the power in them all along, just like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. So those are the 5 Ds that I've found that are great, but people need to dream to be healthy first. That's the first step.
Wow, see what I mean? I was really struck during that, as a long interview, I was really struck that this woman has prepared. She knows the word, dare we say, mycotoxin. What interviewee knows, knows that? She did, she's prepped. She has, go to her website, whenyouneedafriend.com, learn about what she does, whether it's politics, medicine, legal. Lily's there to help. Lily, God bless you and thank you.
Thank you, Doug, and God bless you too.
Well, you see peripherally there my good friend Dr. Julia Schulenberg. She's a naturopathic doctor. She has a bachelor's of science in nursing, was a nurse for many years, ICU, and then became an MD. I'm sorry, I almost said MD. I'm sorry. Naturopaths, I encourage on my live shows that we tape, you know this, guys, I encourage people, if you've got a medical doctor and you've got a couple extra bucks, always have a naturopathic doctor too. So there, I said it. I want to talk to you a little bit about our genes, our genetic makeup, because I love the way you have taught the people we've sent to you about their genetic makeup and genetics versus something called epigenetics. Teach us.
Well, just to start, I want to say that I'm not a genetic expert, okay? But I do know that epigenetics plays a large role in our genes and how they express themselves. Genetics, when someone comes in with a genetic panel or genetic test, it tests for less than 30,000 of our genes, but we have more than 100,000 genes in our makeup. So that brought me to the conclusion, rather than me diving headfirst and studying the genetic SNPs and the genetic tests and the panels, I need to study epigenetics. Epigenetics plays a big role because it's everything that has to do with diet, our lifestyle, the foods that we eat, the nutrients that we take in, toxins, chemicals, insecticides, pesticides, toxic heavy metals, our external environment, our internal environment, high frequency synthetic man-made electromagnetic frequencies.
Epigenetics, many factors that control our genetic predisposition to illness and many other things. Epigenetics focus on internal and external environmental factors that affect how our genes express themselves. In other words, Dr. Julia, you are what you eat. You know, I watched my mom and dad have health problems in their later years, and most of us think, that's the hand I'm dealt. That sperm and egg became me, and so I'm going to have those same health problems. But epigenetics says you're not the hand you were dealt. Your dad didn't exercise. You know,
No.
he enjoyed a different lifestyle and diet than mine.
Right. Inherited disease, that it does play a role, but it doesn't mean that we're going to have those same diseases. Okay, because epigenetics would say, yes, you may have a predisposition to some of those diseases, but epigenetics also says, well, if you change your lifestyle, if you change your food that you eat, if you change the thoughts that you think, if you change the belief systems that you believe, then that will play a role in counteracting what hand you think that you were dealt with.
Dr. Susan Love wrote the breast book about breast cancer and so forth. And in that book, I'll quote her, only about 5 to 10% of breast cancer cases are linked to mom or grandma. It's fascinating, folks, because you tend to believe, if you sit down with a lot of doctors, traditional doctors, oh, mom had breast cancer, we want to do a mammogram, you know, every 6 months on you, when in reality, I'm a 95% guy. I'm not a 5% guy. Dad lost a leg to cancer. He had prostate problems. He had a pacemaker. He had all sorts of health problems. But I looked at his lifestyle before he died, and he was sedentary. He enjoyed beer, the things that I'm not. And I never knew back when I was younger that my jogging, my races I ran and so forth, my diet would have such an impact on Dad's DNA. Have you had a genetic test? Do you go in and get a blood test or a swab and get your genes tested?
I've had many opportunities to, but I chose not to because it doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that I'm putting in the right foods in my body. I'm detoxifying my body, my cells of toxic chemicals, insecticides, pesticides, heavy metals, and I have the right belief systems, because that is epigenetics. That is what's changing the expression of any genes that I have. And that's what's, to me, is most important.
See, I'm a conspiracy theorist guy. I worry that if I give some samples, it's going somewhere other than that laboratory. I'm a little bit worried about lending my DNA to anybody. So what you're saying, Dr. Julie, by the way, you can see what she's doing, and it's exciting. Holistic Healing, HOLISTIC, Holistic Healing JS, JuliaSchulenberg.com. What I'm hearing is I can change the hand I was dealt by my lifestyle, my diet, and the way my brain thinks.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
Good information.
Yes. I know that there's been a lot of scientific research about, say, generational parental experiences going into our cells and cellular memory. That's all correct, but we can change all that as well.
And it's called on or upon in medicine.
That is called epigenetics.
Yeah.
And I don't discount cell memory, and I don't discount inherited diseases. I'm not completely discounting genetic testing, but I think there's not too much weight put into that, not enough weight put on epigenetics.
Science. Someday I want you to define science. Which science? The science of 50 years ago, the science of today, or the science of 50 years from now? Good to be with you. Thank you for that brain. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Do you know the Cause has been on the air for 23 consecutive years, going into our 24th year. What was it, 1989 I began this. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for enjoying the show as much as we enjoy bringing it to you. Thank you, Dr. Julia Schulenberg. Epi means around in medicine. Epigenetics, around the hand mom and dad dealt you. Being a teetotaler and being pulled over because you're drunk? Thank you, Dr. John Trowbridge, for teaching us about auto brewery syndrome. Lily McDermott, whenyouneedafriend.com. Thank you for the 5 Ds of success. Childhood developmental disorders, how I started today. Amazing. I wonder why. God bless you, folks. Thanks for joining us today and always. See you next time. Bye-bye.
The preceding program, Know the Cause, was paid for by Mediatrition Incorporated.